Have you ever felt like you were overwhelmed, stressed out, didn't really have enough time? You could make time for everybody else, but not for yourself? If the answer to any of those is yes, then this book is for you. I've written a book called Reclaiming My Time, a Black woman's guide to self-care, with the express intention of helping women who look just like me to balance all aspects of their life. Now, I can't guarantee you that you'll never be stressed out again, but what I can guarantee you is that if you dig into the principles that I outline in my book, that you'll learn how to carry your stress so much better and live your best life. Pre-orders are available now. Click the link to grab your copy. Hey guys, it's your girl Tiff. Welcome to the Change Talk YouTube channel, the official YouTube channel of Awakening Change Counseling Services. Join us here every Thursday night at 9 p.m. where we'll talk about a host of topics related to behavioral health, leadership, and self-care. Don't forget to hit the button to like, subscribe, and share with all your friends and followers. I'll see you guys soon. Okay, how about now? Apparently, I've been talking and was muted. I started the broadcast and was on, hadn't gone live yet. Tonight is just full of technical difficulties. Kia, can you hear me now? Yes, we're good now. Okay, thank you. All right, so let me start over again. Hello, my Insta fam. Can you guys hear me? Please let me know if you can hear me. My name is Tiffany Jenkins. I'm the owner, founder, CEO of Awakening Change Counseling Services. Hey, Miss Linda, in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And this is Change Talk. And every Thursday, I try to jump on and talk about some topics related to mental health, self-care, leadership, all topics that I have some degree of expertise in. And I try to share. Not quite. Not we're this close. Maybe tomorrow we'll be able to say Dr. Tiff. But close. So try to jump on and talk about some things that I have experience with. And that is actually how I came up with tonight's topic. We're going to be talking about disparities in healthcare that directly affect Black women. And part of the reason why I kind of landed on this topic for tonight is because about a week and a half ago, I had to go into the ER. As most of you know, in 2015, I had open heart surgery. I apparently was born with 3 chambers of my heart. Your heart should have 4. So there was pretty much some structural stuff that was supposed to be in the top part of my heart that I was not born with, but because I hadn't had any issues when I was born, it went largely undetected until a couple of months after my 37th birthday, when I started having some problems. Oddly enough, it was after I had done the not Cooper River, what is that called? The Benjamin Franklin Bridge Run. And my doctors tell me that I probably should not have made it. I probably should have collapsed somewhere on that track or at the finish line. And so I didn't. I'm here. I have a purpose. And so I had a repair in 2015. And then a couple of weeks ago, I started having some problems again that landed me in the ER. And they decided to keep me for overnight observation. And that was probably the most blatant run in that I've had with some of the stuff that I'm going to talk with you guys about tonight in my entire life. This last week was very eye opening about some of these disparities. And I was talking to my coach who was just checking in on me to see how I was doing. And I was telling her about my experience, and she started sharing from her own experiences with some not so great healthcare. So I really want to talk about this because I talk a lot about self-care. Everybody who knows me knows that I'm a huge proponent of self-care. But we have to throw advocacy into that bucket, right? We've got to talk about how advocating for ourselves, particularly if you are a Black woman, can be the difference between life and death, like quite literally. You have to be able to speak up for yourself and advocate for yourself. And I pulled some stats, which I posted on Instagram this week. Hey, how are you? Um, I pulled some stuff off of a website that is called EndoFund. And they endofund.org, and they work primarily with I know that's you, Glennie. um they work primarily with disparities with women with fetal maternal mental health, right? So they focus a lot on like maternal mortality. So there is a very, very, very high prevalence of Black women who go in hospitals to have babies and then don't come out. Right. And that is where the bulk of their work centers around. But they had some really interesting statistics that I wanted to share with you guys. Dr. Carey, I know you needed to lay eyes on me. I'm good. I promise. I'm doing everything the doctor said. I promise I'm doing right. So there are they have 5 actually statistics that I wanted to share with you guys. Denise, I'm fine. That I wanted to share with you guys tonight. The first is that Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from pregnancy related complications than white women. Black women are also 3 to 4 times more likely to suffer a severe disability from childbirth than their white counterparts. So that's a problem. A couple of years ago, we all know about what happened with Serena Williams, where she had the blood clots and she was pretty much denied care and kind of dismissed and kind of pushed to the side. And she really had to press to say, no, something is wrong. In her case, she had a blood clot, and blood clots can be fatal. And this is really scary that 3 to 4 times a Black woman who goes in to have a baby is 3 to 4 times less likely, I should say, to make it out alive. And that's a concerning statistic. Another one is that Black women experience disparities in infertility rates and access to fertility care, to the tune of, if there's 12% of women who are affected by infertility, double that number for Black women. But only 8% of Black women have access to care for fertility issues. So that's an issue. There's just not the same access to care for Black women. And I'm going to tell you my theories on why this is, but I really want to first raise awareness of just how pervasive these issues are. Um, Things like uterine fibroids, which disproportionately affect Black women, receive less government funding than issues that are, say, let's just say breast cancer, um, in general, right? And then when issues that affect Black women are researched, we are less likely to be included if the studies include are layered in such a way that someone has to give consent. We're underrepresented in those studies, but if you look at studies where there's no consent required, like you don't have to consent to it, they can just do whatever they want, Black women are over represented in those studies. Now, the reason why that's important as a researcher is because part of giving consent means you have to tell me what the risk and benefits of me participating in this research are. If there's no consent required, you can do whatever you want. You don't have to tell me what the risks are. I can't say that I want to or don't want to participate in it. And you just have taken my information. So I'm going to tell you a very real story about this that you may have heard of. There's a book called The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. Henrietta Lacks was a Black woman who went in for some testing. They actually took her cells and used them to create tons and tons and tons of vaccines and studies and all of these other things without her consent. And it wasn't until years after she had passed away that this started becoming more public knowledge. Her cells were literally stolen. And she's not the only example where things like this have been done. In this country, there is a history of we'll say malpractice when it comes to how Black folks are treated in medical spaces. There's a book called Medical Apartheid that goes into a really, really deep history of this. There's also, very famously, we talk about the Tuskegee experiments, and things like the Tuskegee experiments have come up again more recently with the push for vaccinations, and why some Black folks or people of color in general really are very hesitant about participating in what some people feel is clinical trials, because most often the folks who are used in the trials that don't need consent look like us, right? And then just from a larger and broader research perspective, there is not a lot of research that is published by or about people of color outside of studies that have to do with race and class. So you will find a number of studies within which there are large samples of Black and brown folks if they're doing something to look at just a race thing. And when I say a race thing, it's kind of hard to separate race from everything else, because we live in a white supremacist system, which is set up to keep people of color at the bottom of that system. But when I'm talking about race, I'm talking specifically about things like segregation and things like that. Some of the more, I'll say more of the socially acceptable ways to include Black folks. So they have no problem with talking about what our rates of addiction are, rates of incarceration, things like that. But when you start drilling down to more fundamental things like access to healthcare, clean drinking water, things like that, some of those studies, and even if we're talking about studies in behavioral health spaces, you don't find a lot of studies that have very large samples, because again, in those studies, you need to obtain consent. So there's all of this stuff going on, right? And some people would say, okay, Tiff, but like, why are we even talking about this? Because like, this doesn't really matter. No, it matters. And I'm going to tell you why it matters. Because I'm going to share with you my experience from last week. I went in, I was having some issues. I told you guys I have a history of issues with my heart. So I'm kind of familiar with, when things aren't beating right and all of that. I had some really great doctors at University of Pennsylvania, Hospital of University of Pennsylvania in 2015 that took care of me. And some of my surgeon was actually from CHOP, who really gave me my life back. So I'm very grateful for them. I've had really, really good physicians in my lifetime, and I kind of know what's going on with my body. I've been living with it for over 40 years. I think I've kind of gotten familiar with the way it works, right? But in this particular case, when I went in and I was trying to describe what I was feeling, I had one physician to tell me without looking at my chart, without asking me anything about my extracurricular activities, I'll say, who told me, well, sometimes this can happen if you just drink too much. So maybe you need to watch how much you're drinking. So I'm not going to share with you the dialogue that went on in my head and what I wanted to say. But I looked at her and I said, "Excuse me? What are we talking about?" And she said, "No, I was just giving that as an example because it was at that moment that I think she realized she kind of messed up." Um, and so she hurried up and glossed over some of my other results. Now, one thing that I am very grateful for that I have that I realize that not many other people have is I know a great number of nurses, right? One of which happens to be one of my very best friends from high school. And when I went to the ER, I had been sending her all of the updates from my chart because now everybody has an electronic medical record and you can easily, oh, y'all mad. Y'all big mad, huh? Yeah. Yeah, she did call me an alcoholic, basically. Yeah, she did. She tried it. She tried it. They do wonder why we go off. And yes, knowing your body comes when you attend to self-care. Um, so I had sent my labs to my buddy, and she was saying, okay, they will probably do this, they'll probably do this, like going through the list of things. And so we're kind of coordinating my care on the side. And then they send another physician in. She was the cardiologist, as a matter of fact, that they sent in to speak to me. Not my cardiologist, not from my group of cardiologists by any stretch. I have no idea who this woman was. I'd never seen her before in my life. And then they send in these two other physicians who were talking to me about just the general like dizziness and wooziness that I was having and things like that. And so the gentleman that came in proceeded to tell me that I was having an anxiety attack, but he didn't call it that. So this is the point at which I kind of decided that I was a little done being nice, right? This is the part where um I know that my education and my training served me very well because this is what I do for a living. And so he started asking me these questions that are very familiar to me because they're from an instrument called the GAD, right? So it's a generalized anxiety disorder scale of about 9 questions, I think it is, asking you about anxiety. And so when he got to about the second question, I said, let me save you some time. My GAD score is 0. This is not a panic attack. And then I proceeded to tell him the physiological, meaning like in your body symptoms that would accompany a panic attack and how that is not what I was describing. And so he just kind of looked at me and blinked slowly. So because he was now caught off guard, then the other physician who was with him started to ask me about stressors. And well, maybe you're stressed out because you're in the hospital environment and all of that. So my response to that was respectfully, and the verbatim, this is what I said. I said, respectfully, if I could survive a doctoral dissertation, 2 master's degrees, have 2 children, and be married for the last almost 20 years, I think I would know what stress is. And to that, there was no answer. So then I started asking them questions specific to my care. And why aren't we doing this test? Why aren't we looking at this? What is this? I had to ask them question first. I had to, it shouldn't get to that, right? I shouldn't have to flex my intellectual muscles. I shouldn't have to remind you, like tell you who I am before I get care. And what frustrated me in that moment is if I didn't know all of these things, if I didn't know about the body's response to stress, if I had never been trained in that, if I didn't know the difference between heart palpitations that were just regular heart palpitations and a panic, like if I didn't know that my heart has an irregular heartbeat, if I didn't know what I feel like when my heart rhythm gets all thrown out of whack, if I didn't know that, if I couldn't articulate what was going on with me, and on top of that, articulate the science and the research and all of that that goes behind why I'm now in the hospital and not sitting at home because I know how to do what's considered a differential diagnosis. Like, oy, I shouldn't have to do that. But I believe that it was my ability to do that that actually got me something, right? I ended up leaving because I no longer wanted to be in that space under the care of folks who clearly didn't know too much, right? I didn't want to be in their care anymore. I just didn't. And so I left, I went home, I did some of the things that I knew to do after my surgery, as far as staying hydrated, taking care of myself, resting for a while, and all of that. And so we decided, my husband and I, that if I wasn't feeling better the next day, I'd just go back to the ER. That's what I did. And when I went back, I had a completely different experience. I had a physician who literally sat down and rolled up next to me, who wanted to know what was wrong and would not ask me anything else about the history or anything else until he helped my symptoms to stabilize, until he helped me to feel better, until he listened to me and what was going on with me and heard me run down my entire medical history, basically from 2015 to present. He listened. And then he said, okay, they didn't do this. And I'm not sure why they didn't do this, but I'm going to send you for this. And then I'm going to send you for this. And if everything comes back fine, then we're going to assume this and we're going to treat this. And then we'll do it this way. And within probably about 2 hours, this man did more than what they did overnight in the hospital. Now, the hospital stay was much more botched. I sleep with a CPAP machine. I was waiting for them to bring the CPAP machine. Got no CPAP machine. There was a bunch of stuff that went wrong. And so when you're in a situation like that, how do you handle it? Well, you can flip out and then they'll call security and they'll have you escorted out and it'll be ugly, right? Or whenever someone refuses to do a test or follow up or something, what you ask them to do is document the reason that they are refusing to do the test in your medical record. That's it. Why won't can you please test for this? Oh, you're not? Can you please document in my chart the reason why you're not going to do that? That's kind of your magic potion. And then there are these beautiful little things, which I conveniently didn't get this time, called called the post hospital what is it called? Survey. They usually send you a survey asking you how your care was. I didn't get one of those this time around. I wonder why. But when you get those, you tell them exactly what happened and why. Sometimes in the moment you're not feeling well, you can't find your voice, you don't you may be foggy just because of whatever is going on with you, but please don't let it go. The reason why we're starting to see more money being poured into research for causes that disproportionately affect our community is because somebody got tired of just taking it and they stood up for themselves. And here's the thing about standing up for yourself. When you start advocating for yourself, you are actually advocating for everybody that comes after you. Because if nobody says anything, nothing changes. It takes somebody to pull the covers off of it and expose folks for who and what they are. Doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you angry. It doesn't make you bitter. It doesn't make you any of that. It makes you someone who is trying to affect change. And that's really what this is about. I'm not jumping on here and talking about all of this to get everybody all like riled up and like, oh my God. No, I need you to understand that when you challenge people and systems like this, you actually do your part to start shaking some of that stuff up. You might not be the one to see it topple in your lifetime, but you've got to be the one that starts chipping away at the foundation. If all of us, every time we were dismissed and discredited and our feelings were played down or ignored, if we all stood up and said something, even if you don't feel like you can do it in that moment, I have learned in my lifetime that writing one good letter goes a lot further than any cuss out ever could. Start writing. There are complaint boards in every state for a reason. Use them because this is the only way that we're going to see change. Nobody at Tuskegee just decided, okay, we've been messing around with these folks for long enough. Let's go ahead and go ahead and give them the penicillin now. No, it took folks going and making noise and shedding light on what has happened in order for things to get better. There is power in your voice. I know sometimes those surveys and those follow-ups can get really annoying and then get on your nerves, but you have to share your voice. You have to share your experience because that's the only way that we can affect change. Okay? So, if they send you if they make a phone call and ask you how your visit was, if they send you the little postcard, if they harass your email, I don't care how they do it. But if you are ever in a position where you feel like you were not heard or your needs were not met or you were disrespected in any kind of way, the only way we get this to change is when we start making noise. Prime example, not medically related, but this weekend, not far from me, there was a gentleman in Burlington County in New Jersey who said some really nasty, ugly, really racist things to some folks, and then shouted out his email all over the World Wide Web and told some folks if they had a problem with him to pull up. Folks pulled up. Like a lot of them pulled up. About 200 people pulled up. And it was only because of them standing outside of his door, demanding action of their local police, that he was arrested and charged. If you don't think your voice matters, I am here to tell you that it absolutely does. One person can make a difference. You let one drop of water keep dripping on a rock long enough, that rock is going to be gone. So never underestimate the power of your own voice. Never allow yourself to think, well, maybe it was just me. Okay, maybe it might be just you. But guess what? If it happened to you, there's a chance that it happened to someone before you. And if you don't speak up, it's going to happen to somebody after you. That's the only way we get stuff done. It's the only way we affect some kind of change in our lifetime. Okay? I've been ranting for a while now. Let me check the comments. I'm sorry, y'all. This got my blood boiling. This got my blood Boiling. Yes. Ooh. I wasn't pleading the blood though, Elder Paul. I wasn't. I wasn't. I'm very proud of myself though, because my voice never. I never really raised my voice. I never really raised my voice. Yes, ma'am. We did pull up, didn't we? We did pull up. Let's check my Insta fam. Oh, y'all in here talking about me. So my Insta fam is talking about me being hard headed. I'm listening to the doctor though. I am. I am. um you know what, Denise? I'm wondering if the what they said about infertility was that just they did have a line in there about it being just women of color are they said that women of color are disproportionately affected. However, the exact statistics that they have are for black women. So I would be interested to see that too. Um the data can also be skewed to support the hypothesis of the researcher. Yeah. So let's talk about that too. Yeah, Henrietta's family is fighting for the royalties. Um so here's the thing. Denise, they didn't see my medical record because some glitch happened and they did not it took them a while to merge my records. Um it did sound like romper room, didn't it? Yanni said that just made me mad. Um oh, I'm filing a complaint. I am. I am. Um let's talk about research for a quick minute. Hey, relationship flow. Hey Mika. Um so when it comes to research, there's so much that's important for us to know. So if you know someone who is pursuing a doctor, I don't care what field they're in, and they are a person of color, please encourage them to publish the results of their research in peer-reviewed journals. And this is why. So the thing about research is that it's multifaceted. It's a multifaceted problem, right? So I already said that we're overrepresented in studies that we don't need consent for. We're underrepresented in studies where you have to have consent. Um, the the topics that are researched that include us are skewed. And then when you add onto that researcher bias, excuse me, it starts to complicate it even more, because that researcher bias, as a researcher, I determine what the factors are that are important for the research. So when I did my dissertation project, I am the one who decided what I was going to be looking at, what factors I was going to be evaluating. I got to set that, right? And so if because I have a certain lens that I view the world through, being a black woman, what is it? Black cisgendered heterosexual woman, mother, mother of boys. Like there are a lot of things that inform the lens through which I see the world. That lens can be different than the way that someone else who may be white, cisgendered male, heterosexual, what they think is important to study. And so it's really, really important, especially when you consider that only about 1.5% of the human population has a doctoral degree. And of that, less than 1% are people of any color, like any color, black, Latino, um, indigenous people. Like there's less than 1%, and we're all grouped together. So when you start thinking about what research even gets conducted, we're not even at the point of talking about publication. When you start talking about what research gets conducted, it's already very skewed, and we are left out of a lot of the research that's going on from the jump because we're not conducting the research because we're not even in those spaces. And then, of the folks who conduct the research in those spaces, if your study is not published in a peer-reviewed journal, it can't be used in other studies. It can't be used to inform the body of research to say, hey, we've got this, but we need to dig a little bit deeper. So if you are someone who is interested in getting a terminal degree and you are a person of color, I need you to consider publishing your research in peer-reviewed journals, because that is how we can start to kind of add a little bit more color, no pun intended, to this data and this research that we're seeing, and make sure that folks like us are included, right? It's not enough just to go and get the degree. That's great. We can celebrate that because that's an accomplishment of itself. It's a very small academy of folks who can say that they have these kinds of degrees, but we've got to pay it forward and push the create space for the folks who are coming after us. All right. Um, Denise, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. It's not as much money as you think. There are a lot of different ways to do it. Even if you're someone who even has a master's degree, if you have a master's degree, you can even publish in peer-reviewed journals. It's not research that you would have been doing, but you have some thesis papers that you may have done that explored some things and have scholarly references with them. Consider submitting those papers, because not everything in a peer-reviewed journal is research. We need more people of color to publish research, to publish thought pieces, to be thought leaders in these spaces, so that we can start breaking up some of these barriers that we see. All right. So what's the takeaway? The takeaway is, I don't care what kind of doctor's office, hospital environment, medical environment you're in, if it's not working, if you are not feeling heard, if you're not feeling seen, I need you to speak up. Kia, inbox me or message me and remind me. I'll get it to you. Aren't they outdated at a certain point? They may be outdated, but here's the thing. If it was relevant back then, all you need to do is update your references, because the information is probably going to be the same. You update your references to make sure that all of the references are within a I'll say 2 to 4 year period, because what they're looking for is 3 to 5 years. But if you update yours and make sure it's 2 to 4, by the time you get through the process, you'll be fine. So I would encourage you to still look back at some of that stuff, especially things that are investigative, and kind of challenging some of the existing theories and things like that, because it does two things. One, it adds research. Now you become a published person, right? Not necessarily a researcher, but you start contributing to being a thought leader in your field and in your sphere of influence as a person of color. So if a student is trying to highlight thought and research by people of color, there's a body of work for them to draw from. Not everybody who publishes in these journals has a doctorate, and not everybody who publishes in these journals is publishing research. So dust off those research skills, and especially like you too, Kia, as you're moving into some different spaces, it's going to really help build your brand voice and your authority because you're now seen as a thought leader in your field. So that's another thing that we can do. That, yes, that's self advocacy in a way. We're pushing our own thought, we are publicizing our own thoughts and our own work. And that is again how we can start to dismantle some of these systems. It's not always grabbing a sign and going out on a picket line. We have a number of ways that we can show up in these spaces and start dismantling these systems. And we got to use what we got. Even in theological spaces, we need a little bit more color in the palette. So really look at what scholarly journals, I'm sorry, there are in your field of expertise, and then start researching what they're looking for as far as their criteria for submissions. And it's a peer reviewed process. It also helps you get better with your writing, your scholarly writing, and all of that other stuff. Okay, you caught it. You caught it. All right. So I got real long-winded tonight. Writing a book too. Yes, Denise, I'm glad you said that. Perfect segue. Oh, I could not have planned that better. Writing a book is a good way too. And I did that. I've written a book called Reclaiming My Time. It is a Black woman's guide to self-care. And I finally got the corrected proof back. So we are back on the road to production. If you pre-ordered, then your goodies will be coming to you very soon. I'm trying to figure out how to schedule. I want to do something live with you guys as we're packing everything up, kind of get you ready, get you in the mood to get your books. I am so excited about all of the goodies that are going in your box. The book, of course, I'm excited about, but just the whole packaging and everything has just been a joy to really put together. Thank you, both of you, Denise and Kia. Thank you very much. I'm so glad folks have ordered. My goal when I wrote this book and I got ready to publish it, I really had a big audacious goal. I wanted to sell 100 copies before the book ever hit the shelves. That was just my goal. That was what I wanted to do. As of tonight, we have pre-sold 94 copies. 94 copies are gone. They are completely spoken for. And I have all of you guys to thank. Now that means there are 6 of them left. So if 6 folks are watching this and you haven't gotten your book, you've still got time. Not a lot of it, but you've got some time to get your pre-orders in, because I will have just 100 copies on hand to go with all of the goodies. I know y'all are tired of hearing me talk about this book, and one of these days I'm going to stop talking about it, but that day is not today. And in addition to the book, in the fall, I'm also going to be launching a masterclass that digs very deeply into the principles that are outlined in the book. It's going to be called Reclaiming My Time, Self-Care for Strong Black Women. So if you are interested, you want to make sure that you are signed up on the mailing list, because when this drops, it is only going to be, the masterclass is only going to be open to 25 women. So if you're on it, you're on it. If you're not, you're not. That's the way that this is going to go. You want to be on the mailing list so that when we start opening up the space for that you can put in your application, and hopefully you'll be able to join me. I'm over the moon excited about this project and everything that is kind of flowing as a result of it. If you joined me at the beginning of the broadcast, you got to see 2 videos. One was about the book. One was just the intro, our new intro for the YouTube channel. Those videos were shot by Chris Steed at #IGotFlicks. My Insta fam, unfortunately, when I go live here, I don't have the ability to send that. But if you go to the YouTube channel, you'll see both of those videos. Go over to Instagram. Make sure you like and share Chris's page. Hashtag I got flicks. Tell him Tiffany sent you. He is a longtime friend, but he is a phenomenal videographer, and you will be seeing a lot more videos and content that Chris is going to be helping me produce. I could not be any more proud of him. And as icing on the cake, he is a Black man who is a father, a husband, just an all around cool guy. So that makes me very happy as well. So I thank you guys for sticking in with me. I got very long winded today. Could you tell I was very passionate about tonight's topic? If you want to go to his page, Kia, tell him I sent you. No, thank you. You can order more than one book if you would like. If you want more than one book, inbox me. And I will send you a different invoice to order multiples at once. So, Elder Paul, just shoot me a quick message. Can I put his information in a DM or within this chat? I will. As soon as I log out, I'm going to, you know what I'll do? As soon as I log out, I'll figure out the way to put the video on the page again, and I'll tag him in it. And then that way you can see him. Okay. I got you. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have any suggestions for show topics, anything that I forgot, anything that I messed up, anything you want to tell me, www.awakeningchange.org is where you'll find me. Or you can DM me on whatever social media platform you may be watching me from tonight. Anytime you DM me, it is me that you're talking to. I don't have any bots. I'm a one-woman show. So you are talking to me if you want to send me something. Or like I said, go to the website, www.awakeningchange.org. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you guys tonight. I love you all. Please stay safe. Take care of yourselves. Please speak up for yourselves. Take out the time you need for you. You can only be at your best for everybody else if you're taking the time to refill your cup. All right, guys. I will talk to you next week. Until then, stay safe and be well.